to order for the first finance on January 10th of 23 for the new year here.
Ben just joined us online.
All right. And we've got our quorum present and nobody here for public comment that I know of. Nobody online, I don't believe. All right. Does anybody have any communications? Some New Year communications? All right. Going once, going twice. Okay, so into reports then, Dave. We'll get right down to business.
Okay. At the last meeting, Lisa had asked what sort of activity runs through the fire department special fund, so I just included their balance sheet, the revenue expenditure report for calendar year 22, and then I just pulled a chart for all the activity for 13 through 22. It's basically the donations that come in from their annual mailer, and then they use it for various things throughout the years. So I didn't know if anybody had any specific questions on them or not. Okay.
Is that kind of what you were looking for, Lisa?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what the 5276 was, but I'm not, I don't need to know every, it was more curiosity than anything. I wouldn't want anybody waste any time looking back on it, because that's
Okay. So if you think of something later on, let me know. Next one for retirement payout transfers. I know there is one. It hasn't been calculated yet, so you'll see that on next meeting's agenda. And then approval of minutes. Just one clerical correction. Both November 15th and open and closed sessions. The header at the top in the printed packet said October 25th. It should say November 15th.
Thank you, Lisa.
Yep. All right. Those were, oh wait, no, never mind. Hold on. So we're done on the reports portion of it. Nobody's got any questions about those?
Correct. Nobody indicated any questions on fire department, and there's no real report for retirement payout transfers until I get the calculation.
Got it. All right. So then with the clarification that we had for the minutes, then I would entertain a motion to approve the slate of minutes that we have listed.
Move to approve.
All right.
Second.
Second. Any questions, other edits? All right. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
And are any opposed? All right. That packet of minutes is approved. Next item in is a resolution to amend the 2022 adopted budget for the Landmarks Commission.
Okay, the Landmarks Commission got a grant covering both calendar years 21 and 22. The vendor invoiced us for $16,925. It's being paid entirely by grant proceeds, but we didn't have anything anywhere close to that being budgeted dollar amount, so I'm proposing that we amend the 22 budget so that this fund is not over budget.
Ultimately just an in and out, yeah.
Basically, yeah, I'm going to increase grant revenue, increase allowed expenditures for the same amount.
Got it. All right, anybody have any questions on that one?
Move it to recommend approval to council.
All right, is there a second?
One clerical correction I just noticed. At the top, committee action recommended approval, it should say today's date.
Yeah, you got 1227 on there.
Yep, fair enough. Still good with that correction, Lisa?
Yep.
And the second? All right, second by Greg. Any other questions, comments, corrections? All right, all in favor, aye?
I,
And are any opposed? All right, we'll recommend that one. Is that one gonna come in tonight, Dave? I can't recall. if
No,
that
it's
one-
not time sensitive.
Got it, okay, but the next one is, I
The
see that.
next one is,
All right, so the resolution, for the reduction in GIP for Glacier Moraine LLC letter of credit.
okay. This is something similar to what we approved last, April probably.
Yeah,
Because they have additional properties, the calculation is that we can reduce the required letter of credit by $25,985. And so I'm recommending that approval, and then, the company will then lower their letter of credit and we'll do the swap of them out. I put it as time sensitive because the longer that they have a higher credit, letter of credit, the more it costs them money, so
Sure.
trying to save them money. At the rate they're going, we're probably going to be cashing this letter of credit in a couple of years. They're not adding enough assessed value to cover it.
is this the, which property is this?
This is the Grosso property.
Okay, yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah, I think they have, what, is it 4 units built out of the 6?
Yeah, that's what I
Something
thought.
like that.
Mhm.
Yeah. And we figured when we got to 4, we would be having this conversation. And hopefully we'll be having one more conversation as they continue to move forward and this gets fully assessed. Not really sure when they were out there to do the value.
I'm not sure either.
I don't know if it was
so-
before or after they completed these last 2, which was fairly recently.
And if they were completed fairly recently, they would have had to been completed by January 1 of '22.
Yeah, it would have been
To get
after
into the
that.
Yeah,
valuation.
they weren't. 'cause I
It
know
was
we-
after that.
Yeah, we walked by in the summer there and they were still roofing one of them, I think, when we were walking past there. So
Okay.
it just hasn't come on the roll yet, so. When they do this, reduction on the letter, do they have to incur fees to get them to reduce that, or is it just like,
Oh, I couldn't say if the bank would charge them a fee, but usually the letter of credit is based upon total value. So because it's going to be about 25,000 less, they're going to have less interest charges or less fees because of
right?
it.
Okay.
Now, yes, they may pay an additional fee to swap out, and they may decide, well, we're not going to lower the letter of credit because it costs us more money. That's their choice.
All right. Yeah, I just wondered if it worked like, you're gonna change the title on a car, you gotta pay the fee to change the...
It could very well. I've
Okay.
never had to deal with it as the borrower side
Got
before.
it. Okay, I just wondered, I mean, it just seemed like, I know every little bit counts when you're talking about paying interest and things, especially now with interest, but, just seems like a small dollar amount. I mean, what are you talking about, like,
About 26,000, but then again, last year we lowered it by about 49,000. So
Right.
we're not talking huge dollar amounts, but
I mean, I can see 10%, but when you get into the 5% overall value,
I don't know either. But
I don't know if it's
put it
worth
this
it,
way, I
but-
got 3 telephone calls or email communications from them in December, or in November actually, wondering when this was going to occur. So
Okay,
I know they have an interest in it.
got it. All right, does anybody have any other questions on this one? All right, we'll entertain a motion to approve that.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Motion by Ozzy, is there a second?
second.
Second by Lisa. Any other questions or comments on this item? All right, all in favor, aye.
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 And are any opposed? All right, we'll recommend that one to council tonight. Next bit up is a resolution for a contract with Parisi Construction for Deer Point Drive and Oak Opening Drive.
Rodney's not online tonight. I believe he's on vacation down in Florida. He did include a memo with this that the budget was for $690,000 and the quote came in a little bit under $400,000, so we're definitely within budget. I don't know if there's any other questions I can answer, but I'll try if anybody has any.
So this is the road over by Stoughton Lumber, and we worked out that deal with the township of Rutland to redo the road, going past Stoughton Lumber and then connecting to Oak Opening into Kettle Park West, and then also going to the north to connect it to 51 West. Parisi's been doing a lot of work out there anyway with the contractors, and they already have equipment that is deployed, so they probably were able to give us a nice bid, I think, because they're doing so much work here already.
Hoping that we might be able to get some extra sidewalk work done, but that all depends, I'm sure, on how the other bids come in. We hardly ever come in this low, but
We'll keep our fingers crossed that this is the new trend, but I'm not gonna hold my breath. It really just comes down to who bids on it and when it gets bid out. This one, we got it out there early, which I think is always an advantage, to get it out earlier, so the companies that are bidding it out can start coordinating their work for as soon as the thaw is. So I think that also probably helped as well.
Yeah.
And I know the developer really, has interest in starting on the properties. I think I heard in June, so we should
Wonder
be
if they
able to.
can accelerate that, because we're not getting a deep freeze in there, so they're not really gonna have to use frost busters in there or anything like that, so.
Yeah, and there's also
Jump.
utility work that's gonna go on in there as well. The water.
Mhm. And this was, they're widening it slightly, right? Like not,
Yeah, they're gonna widen it, and then it's not urbanized, so there's no gutter and curb as
Yep.
part of this, since it's not connected to any sewer or anything like that, but
I always wish there was, because that one retention pond always kind of freaks me out, like you're gonna slide off into that.
yeah.
Anyway. What about like the bumper cars, right?
Yeah, bumper cars.
Perfect. That would be great. Does anybody have any other questions on this contract? I ever tell you I got rear-ended by Santa Claus over right at that intersection?
Coming out of over there?
thing to happen.
It does. It was so bizarre. It was absolutely hysterical. No damage, so it was all good. It was the magic. Slay didn't leave a mark.
Not going there at all. Nope.
I would make a move to recommend approval to council.
All right,
I'll second.
and second by Greg. Any other questions or clarifications on the contract?
Seems like a good price, that's all I can say.
Yeah, for sure.
$400,000 for road like that, yeah, that's fine.
Yep.
I'm happy with that.
All right, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye.
And are any opposed? All right, we will recommend that one to council. Next up is an ordinance to amend the municipal code section 2-585, hotel motel tax. We've got an option A and B, so.
If you remember at the last meeting, you asked, you said you would recommend it contingent upon review by the city attorney. The city attorney did tweak the language in regards to the split between Stoughton Visitor Services and Stoughton Chamber of Commerce. But he also then added a comment that the current statutory rate limit is 8%, and we're only at 6%. So the only difference between the two is option A keeps everything at 6%, plus all the recommended changes to the wording. Option B, all the recommended changes to the wording, but changes it to 8%. It's not included in the packet, but since then I did a survey of the cities in Dane County. City of Madison, 10%. I don't know how they're above the statute, but that's not my concern. Middleton, 8. Monona, 8. Fitchburg, 7. Sun Prairie, 7. Verona, 7. Stoughton, 6.
Okay.
Well, good deal.
I would guess it has something to do with the convention center.
Yeah.
Because I know when I went to Brookfield, they had raised theirs, I think, to 10, and they used some of the proceeds from that increase to help fund the convention center when they built it.
That could very well be.
Just a guess.
Yeah. But that's not my concern at this point. I'll let my counterpart Patty figure that one out.
Any thoughts
Should
on
be
that?
above 6 then.
I think so. I mean, I think maybe not 8, but 7 for sure.
Yeah, I would say, I'd just go for 8 and be done with it myself. The money goes to visitor services, so
Yep.
when Callie comes here every year, that's in her budget, and you heard all the things that she's doing, so, the more we get, the more beneficial as far as marketing the community, and then it's kind of the gift that keeps giving, because then people will go to the hotels, and, it just is kind of a revolving deal. I would think that if we were ever in a situation where, we're in, God forbid, COVID again, or a pandemic, then we might want to see if we can go back and give some relief. I know we were pretty fair as far as late payments and things like that, but, that might be an opportunity there if we found ourselves in that situation again. We'd have to change the ordinance to do that, or at least for temporarily, but it's my 2 cents worth.
Where does it say 8% in here? I couldn't see it. Is that option B?
Thought it was the B option.
If you look at
It's-
option B on Exhibit A, in the middle of the page, I've actually got that highlighted in yellow.
Let's see, it's Exhibit
Oh,
A.
okay, so it's not as part of the actual resolution.
Yeah, it's
Correct, because the ordinance says, change the ordinance based upon the attached exhibit.
Okay,
All right.
got it.
Okay.
So building off of what Mayor's suggesting, do we want to take this as it is and then reopen the ordinance and look at language about giving, the percent holiday if we ever run into extensive circumstances, or do we want to build it in now?
Personal opinion, if you are trying to make that change, you want to put it past the city attorney again for the appropriate language. So then I would ask for a motion to refer to the city attorney for that draft change.
Maybe it might be easier just to have the language as it is, and then if we do get a circumstance,
Yeah,
then we can bust it back open.
Yeah.
I agree with that. I think just leave it as it is, go with the option B, and then if, God forbid, that comes up again,
Yeah,
Make
then we'll address it.
Yeah.
sure. As long as it isn't like a zombie apocalypse.
And really, if you think about
Hopefully
it,
this council and no future council will
if you
ever
think
have to.
about it,
Yeah,
The money is really, doesn't belong to the hotel operator. You'd
Right.
actually be providing relief to the people that are renting the hotel at the
Correct.
expense of mostly visitor services, right?
Well, it'd be visitor
Whatever the portion
services,
is.
Stoughton Chamber of Commerce, and we get 10% of the total, so we'd be cutting our own revenue a bit. If you're gonna do that, you'd probably be kind of touting it as why you should come to Stoughton as opposed to Verona or something.
Right, yeah.
So we get 10% of 8%.
We get 10% of 8%, correct.
Yeah, and the hotel doesn't get any of it. They just have to basically be the pass-through to us.
Correct.
right.
All the hotel gets is the use of the money for approximately 45 days on average.
Yeah, and the benefit to them is the marketing that the Chamber of Visitor Services would do to try to get more people to come there.
Right.
It's synergistic at least.
You could draw me up a map of that.
Of all, make a big Venn diagram of it?
Yeah, that's it.
Sure.
Would you make a motion, Greg, for option
Oh,
B?
sure, I'll make it.
Motion for option B.
Yep, option B, recommended council.
Got it?
Second.
All right, second by Lisa. Does anybody have any other questions or clarifications they want to make on that? All right, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
And are any opposed? All right, we'll recommend that one to council then. Next item up is the resolution for City of Stoughton mileage reimbursement rate indexed to IRS rates.
Okay, the city, including Stoughton Utilities, has been paying employees for mileage at 51 cents per mile since July of 12, has not changed the rate at all. The IRS changes their rates at least once a year, sometimes twice a year like they just did. So effective January 1 of 23, it's 65.5. We are definitely below the limit. What I'm used to seeing at my other employers is actually linking the mileage reimbursement rate to the IRS rate so that when that changes, our rate changes automatically. And with that said, it is possible for the IRS to lower rates. They have done in the past, and yes, our rate will go down then. So I would expect some complaints from employees, but we're indexed. But my recommendation is just index it to the IRS. It's an outside party making that decision, and we don't have to deal with trying to substantiate why we're changing our rates.
I completely agree. I think it's like doing things to the CPI. It's the same sort of thing, so we don't set it, we just follow it.
Right.
Good question.
Yep.
How is that budgeted for?
Well, it's included in my budget at least, it's under travel and conferences.
Okay, so it's an estimate.
It's an estimate, yeah. Senior center may have more mileage than other areas if they have to do client visits. But we don't have a huge amount of mileage. My department goes to the bank several times a week, so we'll have that. But then again, there's times we ask the police department to do it, so they'll make a special trip to Madison for us. One of the problems that I've been trying to, I won't call it a problem, but one of the things I've been trying to do is get departments to be, what's the word I'm looking for, the same in every department, so that some departments are putting mileage into operating expenses, so you don't know how much mileage you're paying. So to answer your question, what will this increase the cost? Right now, I don't have a good answer for you.
So we need to have an account set up specifically for that?
Well, I've got an account set up for mileage.
That everybody would use.
Right, but trying to get everybody to use it, yes.
That's the thing, yeah.
Usually,
Otherwise, you're just going off of past history,
correct,
and you could be wrong because they're not using the right account.
correct, yep.
All right, seems to me like it's a smart idea to index it to the IRS rate.
Yep.
And then maybe a follow-up with department heads and that to get them to realign on getting it out of that account properly.
Yep,
And then we can identify it a little bit better, or have a clearer idea of what impacts are gonna be.
correct.
I'll make a motion to recommend council.
All right, Greg makes the motion.
Second.
Ozzy made the second, not just 'cause I was looking at you, Ozzy. All right, does anybody have any questions on that? Just for clarification, it's the resolution to tie mileage to the IRS index rate, so. All right, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
And are any opposed? All right, we'll recommend that one to council. Next bit up is a discussion and possible action regarding the authorized depositories.
If you remember, back in December, we added another bank so that Stoughton Utilities could do some investment with First Business Bank. And then that got me to thinking that now that interest rates are actually starting to climb, we are starting to pay more attention to it. And having, and I'll give you a good example, I bank with BMO Harris. The money market account, they increased their interest rate on those accounts by fivefold, you know, whatever that is, quintupled. That would be a good choice for investment right now, but BMO Harris is not listed on here. So I'm wondering if this committee would be open, and then subsequently City Council, to get rid of the authorized depositories to allow both myself and Stoughton Utilities to invest in other areas. Now, obviously, we have to follow the statutes for investments, and we'd also be following, you know, any policies that we have for investments. But sometimes the flexibility where it's like, okay, we've got a good rate that we found out about, you know, I need to put money in there this week or I can't get it, is kind of lost. So I wanted to open up that to you folks for discussion. Is that something you're interested in? Do you want to maybe change it so that it's any depository with a office in Dane County, state of Wisconsin? You know, I don't know how you want to do it, if you're open to it. So that was the initial discussion. I know Shannon Stats from Stoughton Utilities is on the line. Shannon, did you want to add anything?
I didn't have anything specific to add. Luckily, the bank that we added, the rates didn't change. But like Dave has said, those rates are volatile. So, you know, they're going up and down quickly. So it would be nice to have the flexibility for us to be able to jump on those decent rates right away. And I appreciate Dave's work last time getting it on the agenda for us quickly, and we were able to lock in those great rates. But, you know, I appreciate Dave bringing this forward, because in the future, hopefully, if rates continue to go up, we'll see. It would be nice for us to be able to jump on that as soon as we can to get the extra income. So I thank you, Dave, for bringing this forward.
As long as we have both of you on here,
Okay.
what would be the downside of making that kind of vote? There's got to be something.
I think the downside is, number one, whether you want to have local control or not. For instance, when I was at Dodge County, they said it had to be somebody with offices for banking, had to be somebody in Dodge County. They wanted that specific local control. The other thing is, you know, if I wanted to invest with the Algonquin, New York School District, you know, and it may be a AAA credit, but somebody may say, where did you find Algonquin, New York? Why are you investing there when city of Beloit needs the money or whatever? So, like I said, we've got the investment policy that could dictate where we do it. We've got the statutes that say, you know, I can only do so many things. I can't invest our money in Xerox. We can't go into the stock market. So you are giving the people with the investment authority more latitude, but with that, you've got to give them more trust. You know, and I'm not saying that you folks don't trust us at all, but it's how much control as you as elected officials want to have. Not that we would ever do it, but you do not want to see our name in the newspaper like Orange County, California in the 70s.
Shannon, any comment?
Again, I agree with Dave here. I think you put your trust in us to manage the dollars appropriately, and I think that we are giving us this more flexibility allows us to do our job much more efficient. We could certainly make it so that we would bring it back to you. I know Dave said, you know, you write it how you want. We could certainly make it so that if something were to come up, you know, we have to inform council within, you know, X number of days or what have you, but I think this would offer us more flexibility to hopefully invest the dollars a little more strategically for the utility and for the city.
How often does
And if
it,
you want to cap it, you know, however, whatever you guys think, of course, but
Thank
up
you,
to you.
Shannon. Thank you.
how often does this happen that you'd be, you know, making these decisions and?
Well, to be honest, and this is not a cut against any of my predecessors, because interest wasn't out there, so chasing interest didn't make a lot of sense. But really, we've only got our monies, for the most part, at least on the city side, in investments that we can take out in cash right away. So it's almost like a high-interest savings account, in effect. With the approval that, or we already had one community bank on there, but when I was looking at the pension fund, we've got almost $1 million in it, and I'm like, we should be laddering those in longer-term investments. So I opened up a 182 days CD with them for $250,000, earning about 4% interest. You know, so I'm going to be laddering those things more. If we have more CDs for laddering, you know, I might have 3 CDs that mature at different banks all in 1 month that I have to make moves on. If I would get into looking at bonds from local governments, whether investing with myself or with Eller's Investments or something like that, you could have something that's maturing and, okay, I've got $250,000 sitting there, you know, earning no interest. I got to find the investment. Okay, Stevens Point is issuing a bond right now with an attractive rate. Let's buy it. So how often, I can't answer depending upon how we get into the investments. You know, I'm not looking to go gung-ho right away, but it's out there now, so if I can start getting 400 basis points instead of the 20 basis points that we've been getting, a lot better.
Can they call any of those, or did you?
Right now, we have no bonds, at least on the city side. And yes, I would imagine any bond that we have out there would be callable. So depending upon the time frame, usually if you've got a 10-year bond, they're usually callable at the 6 to 7 year mark. So something you get called up right away and you never know, you know, what's going to happen.
I mean, I think you should have that latitude, but I think it'd be important, to just, report out anyway, so that there isn't, so we look like we know what we're talking about, or that we're informed, and I don't know if that's, again, if it happens, just once a month at finance, or I don't know what others think, but I'd be interested to know
Quarterly, maybe?
what's,
Quarterly, maybe?
Quarterly, I mean, whatever seems reasonable to everybody else, I mean,
I think you should keep it local too, within Dane County.
Within Dane County. Now, are you talking for banking and CDs, or are you talking, let's say we get into bond purchases. That would only mean that municipalities in Dane County could be purchased, but Waukesha County is a triple. They've got AAA ratings with everybody. If Waukesha County has a great rate, I couldn't purchase it under that. So, and I don't have a problem with it. I'm just kind of looking for the guidance, what you folks want.
I'm more concerned about the ratings probably than, staying in Dane County.
Okay. Let's see if this works for you folks then. I can draft a resolution for next meeting, putting that out there, putting in something about either Stoughton Utilities or the city has to report to the Finance Committee or Stoughton Utilities Committee at their next meeting about any changes. And then we can implement something that is usually done at the counties, where you actually give a report, whether monthly or quarterly, of all the investments that you have out there. And right now we do that with our cash report with BSNA, but those, like I said, are basically checking accounts and low yield savings. But we'd be doing something like that in some format.
That makes sense to me.
What kind of lead time do you generally need? Like if you see something out there that's, better rate than what you're drawing on, how much time generally do you need, or what's your window of time to act on that? Is it a day?
It depends on what we're looking at, because if you start working with the investment broker for these types of things, they're going to call you up. This great thing came out, and you could look at it and say, right now, I don't have excess cash. However, when it comes to the settlements for taxes, what is it, August 15th settlement, our cash goes up quite a bit. So about that time, I'd probably be looking and saying, okay, I'm going to have, I'm just throwing out a number, $300,000 extra to invest on that time. Probably a 2-week window. But yeah, sometimes you have next to nothing for notice, especially if you got a bond that's called. It's suddenly, I got extra money. I got to find someplace to invest it now.
It could be in a few hours, and then they may not have them for sale anymore. They've already been bought.
Correct. Yes.
Okay.
You have to have that latitude to make that decision quickly.
Right. And then I think one of the things that I could work on in that is also looking at our investment policy to make sure that we don't buy anything below, and I'm just talking out loud, a single A rating with Moody's. You've got A, AA, and then AAA. The statutes allow us to go into B ratings, but now you're getting less and less likely. So I'll make sure, kind of covering that area, that the credit ratings for those agencies are good. And as you know, a credit rating is just a moment in time. If, I don't even know if they had a credit rating, but FTX, if you had looked at it 6 months ago, they probably had a pretty good rating, and then when everything fell apart, they're probably junk bond status, if anything. So, it's only as good as that moment in time. Shannon, you and I can work on that
To-
proposed policy if that's something the committee wants.
But to Ozzy's point though about Dane County, I think that might be, no disrespect, Ozzy. I think that might be a little bit limiting. I mean, if you wanted to go to full state, I think that might be,
That would be what I would recommend.
would be something that would make more sense. And, just the option of, if you find something that's, just absolutely marvelous, then that would have to come to us, I would think. It would be beyond the state.
Right.
I don't know, yeah. But my own concern with all of this is this is the people's money,
Correct.
and I want it to be safe and secure above all.
And
That means that we're gonna be taking a little bit less money in return.
I don't have a problem with that at all.
Yeah.
I haven't looked at the investment policy in quite a while, but I would be severely shocked if it isn't more limiting than the Wisconsin statutes allow, just because we want to be as safe as possible. I'm not saying that we would do anything less than AAA, but maybe we want to say, okay, it's got to be a minimum of AA rating to even restrict
I
that.
would feel a lot better if we did something like that, yeah.
Okay.
Dave, can we open up the investment policy, maybe just take a quick look at it and in the next meeting or other meeting?
We'll
or something?
probably do these two things in conjunction together.
Because I think, yeah, like Greg is saying, I'm a little bit hesitant about that because we're supposed to be the guardians of the money in it, but we're the ones elected.
It's a balance of risk and reward.
It is.
Yeah, it is.
But so I think at least if we would do that, I mean, we understand that modern banking goes at a much faster pace than it had 5 years ago, 10 years ago, anything like that. So nimble isn't usually a word we use in government, but I think maybe we might be able to with some stipulations,
Okay.
safeguards.
Statutes allow us to invest in corporate paper. In other words, notes and bonds issued by private companies. Is that something that you want to even consider? Again, we would be looking at the S&P rating or Moody's rating. But some places I've worked said, no, you do not buy corporate
Yeah.
paper at all.
That seems a little
But wouldn't we be
riskier.
getting into some social issues then too? I mean, like, do we want to invest in
Yeah, that's
oil
true.
and,
Right. Yeah.
people that are dealing with less than scrupulous,
Okay?
Yeah, I think you'll avoid
I don't
that.
know, I'm not sure I'd want to go that way.
Yeah,
Okay.
maybe
I
baby
don't
step.
have a problem with that.
Yeah.
Okay?
All right, you have enough guidance on that?
I think so, unless anybody else wanted to add something or had more questions.
I did, but it just went right out my head.
Well, you
Next
said
time.
it goes out your head after the meeting. It shouldn't go out of your head yet.
No, I can't control it all the time.
Okay. Thank you, everyone.
Ben, do you have anything that you wanted to add in on it, or are you good with the discussion?
Yeah, I'm good with the discussion.
Okay, thanks. All right, then we'll move on to the next discussion and possible action regarding the offer to purchase buildings owned by Stoughton Housing Authority.
Okay, I'm not going to get into the details. This is a very complex subject that we've got a limited time frame on, just because WEDA, Wisconsin Economic Development Corp. pretty much put out the instructions to everybody by mid-November, said you had to apply by January 27th, so a very short window. But we are looking to potentially sell the buildings, not the land, to a partnership, 501c3, for the purpose of obtaining tax credits so that they can remodel the remaining ballpark 73 units. So instead of getting 2 or 3 done a year, we'd get all of them, the remaining ones, done at the same time. Brett has actually been party to seeing some of the paperwork and the questions we've got. We're trying to do our due diligence to get everything done on time. Like I said, it's severely complicated, but we're trying to work on it. We are not certain if City Council has to vote on it, but we'll bring it up just in case that they do. And I guess my personal opinion is, even if the council doesn't have to vote on it, we'd want the council to know about it just in case questions come up. So
This has been going on for quite some time, hasn't it? I mean, the remodels.
the remodels, we've been doing 3, maybe 4 every year, so it's been
Yeah.
5, 6 years.
Slow process.
Yeah, it's a very slow process. This is a way to get it done within a couple years period.
Basically, the nonprofit takes control of the title during the period that they do the renovation over at Greenspire, and then it's transferred back to us when the work is done. They make their money off the tax credits, and then the value to us is we get them remodeled for basically nothing. And right now, we don't have a path to get the rest of them remodeled. And we mean remodel, we're talking about making them ADA compliant to today's standards, not the standards of when they were built back in the 80s or whenever it was. So we've been chipping away the best we can with the limited amount of resources we have to work with, but with rising costs, even this last batch, what did we do, 4 maybe?
4 units.
I think we were hoping to do 6 when we started the conversation, when we went to get a bid on it. So the Housing Authority kind of owns this thing, but it's on city land, as Dave mentioned, so we just want to make sure you guys are in the loop. It wouldn't change anything as far as the operation, the management company, or anything like that. So the residents would not be affected, other than, we may, as the units are vacant, those are the ones that we'd remodel first, and we might have to shift people around and able to keep the process going as far as, getting them all completed. But, the hope is we could minimize the impact for those that are there. But when it's all said and done with, they'll have a much nicer place to live. So that's kind of the goal here. We had a long meeting yesterday. The city attorney had a lot of questions. The company that we're working with have had successful projects within the state of Wisconsin. So they're just working through the language, and we would expect to come back here and update you as we can. But it's moving pretty quickly, as Dave mentioned. We have a really tight timeline, which is really beyond any of our control. So we're just trying to get it to the point to get it submitted, and then we wouldn't know until May whether or not our submission has, been accepted for the grant or for the tax credit.
So this may not happen if the funds, we don't get it.
Yeah, we might. It's a point system. It's similar to a grant, so we may or may not,
Yeah, 'cause
even
if
be
there's-
successful.
If the tax credits aren't received, there's no reason to go forward with the sale.
Yeah, so we wouldn't close on the property until we have an answer on the tax credits.
Correct.
Okay.
It's like the last one, the money went to Milwaukee, a lot of money went to Milwaukee.
Milwaukee, Green Bay, Madison, the bigger cities. But this is a good project. I would hope they would consider helping us reinvest into this. It's been a good, successful program for many years, and this would really set us up for several years to come.
The thing that threw me in the whole bit.
Pardon me?
You need any action on this?
No, this is just kind of bringing it up to you. I put discussion, possible action, just in case you as a committee wanted to take action. I don't know if there's any need for it, but just giving you the capability if you wanted it.
Sure. Yeah, the thing that threw me in the paperwork was their weird amortization schedules and that, and they've got their weird terms and like
We're
really
working
long
through it.
terms. It just seemed, I wasn't sure if they were hocus pocusing us with this or what, but anyway.
If you have any questions, just send them to Dave.
For sure. All right, last item then we have up is a resolution to amend the 2023 adopted budget for the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Task Force.
So the DEI task force met the other night, last Wednesday, I think it
Yep.
was. And they actually made two motions. One was to recommend that the city council basically hire Abba Tucker to help facilitate and be a project manager for the project. The other motion was really to dissolve the task force and have Abba work directly with the city council to complete the plan that we'd asked the task force to do. You know, I'm here to suggest that if that's the direction that finance and council wants to go, that they consider, you know, working through the CACP committee, seeing that that's where the recommendation to form the task force came from. So I think what we're looking for tonight is direction and a possible motion to the resolution to enter into an agreement with Abba Tucker. Now, I've asked her to come to the next council meeting. If you feel like you're not comfortable taking action tonight, I could certainly, we could put this back on the finance committee agenda and have her attend that before the council meeting in 2 weeks.
I wondered, would it make sense, because I was reading through this today, and as you know, I had quite a few questions, and I still have a few, partly just because I'm not, you know, I haven't been involved in this sort of process before, but would it make sense to defer this first back to CACP for consideration to see if this, I feel like it might be putting the cart before the horse to approve the funds
Yeah.
when we're not 100% sure. I mean, overall, I think there's a lot, you know, that looks very positive. But I guess I just wonder if it makes sense to take this back to CACP to look at the concept and, you know, before we enter into an agreement.
Well, Lisa, now, you and Ben are both on CACP, right?
Yes.
Okay. Is this going to overload that committee?
Well,
To
that's part
take-
of what I don't know.
Yeah, to
you know?
take those activities?
I mean, my initial reaction would be no, because really the CACP, on their list of things to do right now, is they may have one or two more park names to do. We have recommendations coming from the committee on council for tonight. They don't really have a lot as far as future agenda items, but we could certainly send it there and just ask them the question, is this something that you want to entertain at this time? And I could certainly, you know, make arrangements to have, you know, Abba attend that meeting instead of the next council meeting, if that's the desire. I mean, what I'm trying to do is keep this thing moving. As I mentioned, the DEI task force is looking really to hand this off and have the council take ownership with it. They've taken it as far as they feel that they can. So they're willing to step aside to try to keep this thing moving.
I would agree. I do think that CACP is probably the most appropriate.
Mhm.
And you're right, I think we've had, unless there's something else, and it sounds like there isn't anything else coming down the pike, I think that would probably be the most appropriate committee.
But do you feel that the CACP would be the better place to start with this? To have them take a look at it and discuss it, and then recommend to finance?
I mean, I do, but that's just my personal opinion. You know, Ben's been on CACP and has been more involved in, you know, some of the.
'Cause I would agree with that. I would agree that, I think
Yeah.
that's a proper way, but I don't know, Tim, is it gonna be time sensitive
Well, we were hoping to start in February, but, you know, I would rather make sure everybody's on board
Yeah.
than to rush it through, because it's gonna be a year-long process regardless.
Agreed.
And as long as I can communicate, you know, to Abba, and the committee can communicate to her, you know, maybe we start in March instead, I don't think that's a deal breaker for her. I would just need to let her know.
I mean, I don't have any objection to the funding for it, but I think it would be unfair to give marching orders to another committee, so.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So I think then what we'd wanna do is maybe just make a motion to recommend. to send
I'd
it
make a
to
motion
CACP.
to refer this to the CACP committee for discussion and action, and then return it to finance.
Second.
All right, everybody clear about that? So we're gonna have CACP look at not necessarily the budgetary item, but the task and the workload that is being, well, would be put onto them
Yeah,
to
'cause
work
it is
out.
a pretty good commitment. She's
Yep.
indicated that, you know, she'd like to have 2-hour meetings. Typically, the meetings have been less than an hour and a half.
Mhm.
I have to make sure that everybody on CACP is gonna be okay with that.
Sure.
So I think that's perfectly fine.
All right. Any other questions about that? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye.
And are any opposed? Okay, then we will defer that one over to CACP to have a look at. All right, that runs us through our business. For future agenda items, we've got December reports, action regarding the offer to purchase by the Stoughton Housing Authority that we talked about already earlier. City employee market rate adjustments and meal reimbursement rate indexed. That's another interesting one, all right.
Well,
Ooh,
we
got quite
haven't
a few.
updated the meal reimbursement amount for over a decade.
Okay, all right,
So-
fair enough, fair enough. We got quite a few on here. Fund balance policy, TID 6, and capital improvement plan and debt management policies. All right, does anybody want to add anything else into that? I mean, we're not through the whole alphabet, so plenty of letters left. All right, with that, I'll have entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All right, any questions, comments? All right, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye.
And are any opposed? All right, meeting's adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.